Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, let us learn one more interesting topic, that is AWS Keyspace. It's one of the service. So before going to introduce about it, let's move on with need-based scenario. Let's say you're having a business critical application where those application takes and process thousands of requests per second every day. Now the question is, you are the responsible person to maintain that data. So for that, you analyze which type of data it is at first. Then you notice that it's a transaction processing data. That is, there is no structure for this. That is, this comes under unstructured data. We can store this type of data under NoSQL databases, and we can even process that data under the NoSQL databases. So, what is the problem that you face now? You need to maintain business critical applications where these applications need to process how much amount of data per second? Up to thousands, thousands of requests per second. So, per second, you need to process thousands of requests for your business critical application. Now you are searching for overcoming this need. Then after a fine research, you found a solution. So let's see what is the analysis that you done with this. So what is the analysis that you done with this is, basically your data is a transaction processing data. Transition processing data. So this data is transition processing data, and it comes under which type of data? It's a structured or unstructured data. It's a unstructured data. That means maybe some fields will not contain the values. Some fields may be empty. Sometimes some data may provide some additional fields of values also. And now, by using this information, that is transaction processing data and unstructured data, you analyze it for a solution. So where you can able to store this data, solution for storing and processing. So you want a database for storing and processing. What we need? We need a database for this type of data, where this data is requested thousands of times per second, but we got the response fastly. So for this type of scenario, in order to store this type of data, we actually use, since it's unstructured data, we use NoSQL database only. NoSQL database only. If it's a SQL database, then where we put this type of data? We put this type of data under Redshift, since it needs to process thousands of requests and very large scale of data and need consistent response, we will choose Redshift. But now here it's a NoSQL database. Then the question is there any NoSQL database which is available for me to process thousands of requests per second for business critical applications? Yes, the answer for this is yes. So what is that database, sir? Apache Cassandra. What is that? Apache Cassandra. By using this, we can able to store and process our data. For storing and processing this type of transaction processing data, we call it as OLTP data. OLTP data where it requires to process thousands of requests per second, we have an option. What is that? Apache Cassandra. What is that? Apache Cassandra. So now let's see what is this Apache Cassandra is. Apache Cassandra. Actually, this Apache Cassandra is a NoSQL database service. It is a NoSQL database service. So however we require like that, it's a NoSQL database service only. And it is a open source service. It is a open source service. So anybody can able to use this service, right? Yeah. Since it's a open source, anyone can able to use it. We can able to, by using this, if we use this, then we can able to store and process our business critical applications, where these applications can even process up to thousands of responses. So I already written this point, that is for storing and processing, we need a database, that is Apache Cassandra. So let me write that point here. By using the Apache Cassandra, we can able to store and process what type of data? Business critical applications. Business critical applications, where these applications, if you store your data under this Apache Cassandra, then your applications can process up to thousands of responses per second. You can write where these applications can process thousands of responses per second, right? Yes. So now, in order to provide this type of fast response, so how fast response it is? We are processing thousands of responses per second. So can I simply say it has a fast response? Yes, we can simply say it has a fast response. This all in a single word, we can say it as fast response. So in order to provide this type of fast response, that is thousands of requests per second, this database store data in the form of wide column format. That is, it is similar to storage. It is similar to column format storage. It is similar to column format storage. So in order to provide this type of fast response, to provide this type of fast response, Apache Cassandra stores data in the form of, how it will store? Wide column format. Wide column format. So it is similar, this wide column format is similar to column based storage. You have seen already Redshift, right? It's a relational database column based storage. So if you are checking for non-relational database column based storage, then you need to choose this key space, because these all things will be provided in key space as well. So a part of this Cassandra, in this key space also, these all things will be provided. I'll discuss you with that. So by using this Apache Cassandra database, you can able to store the data in the form of wide column format. That is, what does it mean? Wide column format means wide column format, which indicates it stores one column as one disk storage. That is, in this one disk storage can store one column data of table in one disk in one disk in one disk storage. In one disk storage, what happens? It will store one column data of table. So your one column of data will be stored in one disk. So like that, your data is distributed based on columns, not based on rows. It will be based on columns. Your data is distributed since it's a column based storage. In this Cassandra, in this Apache Cassandra, multiple table column data are maintained by one key space. What is that? One key space. By using one key space, we can able to maintain multiple column data. One key space contain multiple column data, right? Yes. So in order to provide this in Cassandra, we need to manage these key spaces where our data is stored actually under these key spaces as multiple column data. In Apache Cassandra, our data is stored under these key spaces in the form of multiple columns data. So indirectly, what I have under Cassandra, I have key spaces. So now what I need to maintain? I need to maintain these key spaces by providing some infrastructure for this, right? Yes. So how do we maintain these key spaces? How do we maintain these key spaces in Apache Cassandra? We'll maintain these key spaces in Apache Cassandra by providing cluster of nodes. Here also we'll create cluster of nodes under Apache Cassandra. And so after creating these cluster of nodes, do I need to provide connection between them? Yes. And connectivity between them also I need to maintain. And after providing, do I need to maintain my cluster and connectivity? Yes. So providing and maintaining is required for whole my cluster of nodes and connectivity between them. So whereas this becomes some risky to me, this becomes some burden to me. In order to overcome this burden of creation and maintenance of my Cassandra infrastructure, so this all we call it as Cassandra infrastructure, right? Yes. So in order to overcome the burden of creation and maintenance of this Cassandra infrastructure, AWS comes with a service called AWS Keyspaces. What is the service? AWS Keyspaces. So now the service is introduced. What is the service? AWS Keyspaces. Why we need to go for this AWS Keyspaces instead of Apache Cassandra is to overcome the burden of creation and maintenance of Apache Cassandra infrastructure. To so in order to overcome the burden of creation and maintenance of Apache Cassandra infrastructure, what do we need to choose? We need to choose this AWS key spaces. So what happens in these key spaces is, instead of you, behalf of you, in place of you, AWS will maintain all the keys, all the key spaces that you are creating. All the key spaces that you are creating, AWS will maintain for you. So that's why for that we need to be charged. We are charged by AWS. So here this burden will be taken care by whom of maintaining these key spaces? AWS. Nothing but, what is this key space? It is nothing but multiple columns data. Nothing but our table data is nothing but multiple columns data, right? Yes. So those columns data is maintained under key spaces. These key spaces will, if I use Apache Cassandra, then these key spaces will be maintained by me. So in order to overcome that burden of maintenance by me, I'll choose AWS key spaces. What does happens in AWS key spaces? In if I use AWS key spaces, then what happens is, there I don't even need to maintain or manage. I don't even need to maintain or manage what are the key spaces that are created, right? Yeah. So this is the need for you to choose AWS key spaces. Okay, now we understood when do we use key space instead of, why do we use key space instead of Cassandra. So now let us see about this key space. Let's say my data is already hosted in Cassandra. Now, since I know the advantage of key space, that these key spaces will be maintained by AWS and we don't even need to maintain that burden. So I'm now wishing to move my data which is present under Cassandra to these key spaces. Now my question is this key space is compatible for my Cassandra? To move my data from my Cassandra to this key space, is this key space is compatible to my Cassandra? Yes. The answer for this is yes. Key space is compatible of Cassandra. AWS key space is AWS key space is compatible to Apache Cassandra. Apache Cassandra. That means you can able to move your data from Cassandra to Keyspace to avoid this creation and maintenance of infrastructure of your cluster of nodes. You can able to move your data from Cassandra to Keyspace. Let's say if I moved my data from Cassandra to AWS Keyspace database. Now, in this AWS Keyspace database, for what we need to pay? We only pay for what we use. That is, we need to pay for storage of what we use and compute for what we use. So in order to provide compute, we have two types of options, that is based on throughput. Based on throughput, we have two types of options. First one is on demand and second one is provision throughput. On demand throughput and provision throughput. So what this provision throughput, sir? If you choose provision throughput, we need to configure number of workloads here. We need to configure number of workloads. That means number of nodes, cluster nodes that we need to configure here. That is a number of workloads that you need to configure. And one more thing is we need to provide auto scaling as well. So we need to configure number of workloads to process our data and store our data, and we need to provide what auto scaling group as well. So why do we need this auto scaling group, sir? To maintain the low traffic, we require this auto scaling group. To maintain the low traffic. So based on your traffic load, so your number of workloads utilized may increase or decrease by using this auto scaling group. So for that, you need to configure this auto scaling group as well. So let's say I am not expecting to configure this number of workloads or auto scaling group. I want to more concentrate on my data, and I want to morely concentrate on my business. Now, is this AWS provides me any way to provide that these things by default? Yes. So AWS will provide all these things. If you choose on demand throughput, then AWS will provide. AWS will provide all whatever we need. Whatever we need. We need to pay for whatever we use. We need to pay for using them. That's it. We just need to pay for using them. Whereas AWS will provide all the necessary things for us. If you choose throughput as on demand, if you want control over your providing resources, then choose provision, so that you can able to configure number of workloads, and you can able to configure auto scaling group as well to maintain the load traffic. So let's say my data is stored. Now what I want to do, I want to process my data. So to process my data, that is how to process my data. By using any one of the query language, you can able to process your data. So to query the data which is present in AWS Keyspace, what do we use? To query the data stored in AWS Keyspace, what do we use? We use CQL. Important thing, remember. Cassandra query language. By using Cassandra query language, you can able to query the data stored in AWS Keyspace. We can directly query our data stored in AWS Keyspace by using this CQL. From where? From console. From AWS console itself, you can able to do processing of your data which is stored under your AWS Keyspace by using this CQL, Cassandra query language. Right? Yeah. So in order to run these queries, do we need any license? Yes. So in order to run these queries, we need Apache 2.0, Apache 2.0 licensed Cassandra client driver. So we require this Apache licensed Cassandra client driver. We must require this Apache Cassandra client driver license. Then only we can able to run our queries on our database on AWS Keyspace. Okay. So let's say I stored my data and I process my data. Now I'm worrying about my encryption. What is that? encryption. So how to provide encryption? AWS Keyspace provides encryption facility for your data. AWS Keyspace even provides this encryption facility for your data. Even your data in rest mode, or else even your data is in motion, that is in transit. Your data is in transit mode, or even in your data is in rest mode, this AWS Keyspace will provide you encryption as. Let's let us look at concentrating on defining this key space. So is it a SQL database or NoSQL database? Since it is storing NoSQL data, we can say it is a NoSQL database, right? Yes, it's a NoSQL database. Who will manage everything for you? Who will manage underlying infrastructure for you in this NoSQL database? In this NoSQL database, AWS is managing everything for me. So we call this as fully managed database. Fully managed database. Which type of database? NoSQL. So we call it as NoSQL fully managed database. So where this present, where this AWS key space will present. If I create one key space, then this will be present under your VPC. AWS key space will stores under your VPC. So within your VPC only, within your VPC only this key space will be stored. Now, how this will store data? In which format this AWS key space will store data? This AWS key space will store data in wide space column format. Wide column format. In wide column format, this will store your data. So can this provides me a fast responses? Yes, it provides you fast query responses. That is, it provides you fast performance. It provides you fast performance. For how many queries per second? For how many queries per second do I got responses? You got responses for thousands of queries per second, up to thousands of queries responses you got per second. If you use this key space, then you got thousands of queries per second. So you can take it granted that whenever you require thousands of query responses per second, and if you require wide column storage format of data storage for your NoSQL database, then you can take it granted that you must need to use this AWS service, that is AWS Keyspace. If the database is a NoSQL database and it need to store your data in wide column format, and it need to process up to thousands of queries per second. These are the key hints where in AWS certification they will play tricks with you, so that you must need to remember these points. That is, you trigger NoSQL management database and either wide column format or thousands of requests per second. Then you need to prefer this key space. They'll provide you NoSQL managed database and wide column format. What is that database service available in AWS? Then you need to choose this AWS key space. Or else they may ask you in this way as well. That is NoSQL database, and which can able to process your thousands of your queries, which can able to process thousands of queries per second. Then also you can choose this key space only. It's a database service in AWS. So while using this AWS key spaces, do we need to maintain any underlying infrastructure for this? No. That means we are not maintaining any servers for this. So can we call the service as serverless service? Yes. We can call the service as serverless service. We can call the service as serverless service. It provides me high availability. Yes, since AWS is maintaining this, AWS will take care of high availability as well. So what about scalability? Does it provide me high scalability? Yes, based on our required load or traffic, this will scale highly. That is, this is highly scalable. This is highly scalable and highly available. Can we say it is compatible with Apache Cassandra? Yes, AWS Keyspaces are compatible with Apache Cassandra. Since this AWS Keyspace service providing me the fast performance, can I say it provides me the response with very low latency? Yes, it provides me the response with a very low latency since it is serverless and providing fast performance, and it's highly scalable and available since it is providing me the response with very less time. We call it as low latency performance. Also, it provides me low latency performance as well. So one of the major use case for this AWS Keyspace is you use mostly in trade monitoring. What is the use case? We use this Apache Cassandra, that is a AWS Keyspace, in trade monitoring, as well as you can use it for optimal applications, that is route optimization applications. Route optimization applications, for these type of applications also we use this AWS Keyspace for route optimization applications as well as for trade monitoring. What does meant by route optimization applications, sir? You can assume like cab booking system there. For route optimization application, we use this Apache, we use this AWS Keyspace. So if we move back to wide column storage, our data will store in the form of wide column storage, right? Yes. So if we analyze it, if we analyze some more in depth of it, then the table data is how it is distributed. How it is distributed under key spaces is table data is separated or distributed. Table data is stored by using what? By using partition key. What is that? Partition key. So in this wide column storage, your data is stored in your table data will be stored in the form by using partition key in the form of column based storage. So whatever the table data that you have, that is first partitioned based on your partition key, and then it will be stored in the form of wide column format under your AWS Keyspace. So let's see the pricing regarding based on our throughput, how will be our pricing. So if you choose on demand, then your price will be for the number of reads, the number of reads as well as the number of reads and writes which are performed against your table, which are performed against your table. So whatever the table that you store, on the table, how many reads or writes that will be performed, based on that you will be charged under on demand. Here you don't need to provide anything. AWS will provide everything for you. So this on-demand throughput mode is highly suitable for which type of scenarios is unpredictable. Unpredictable workloads. This on-demand throughput is highly preferable. It is preferred for unpredicted workloads. So if you are having a highly predictable workloads, so if you are choosing for highly predictable workloads, then this provision throughput is the good option for you. So in this, you need to configure the number of workloads, that is a read and writes per second. It provides you capability to provide this read and writes per second. So based on your traffic load also, you can maintain number of reads and writes per second by using auto scaling group as well. By using auto scaling, you can even able to predict what are the low traffic, and even you can able to increase or decrease your workloads as well if you choose this provision. So in order to process your data which is stored under your AWS Keyspace, what you use? SQL language, right? Yes. So you can process up to thousands of queries by using directly from AWS Keyspace console. From AWS Keyspace dashboard, you have a SQL interface for you where you can able to write your queries of up to 1,000 lines. But if the queries are exceeded than that, then you need to split the queries into multiple parts, and you can able to execute each and every individual query so that your whole task will be performed. So you can able to run up to thousands of queries, thousands of records per query. Per query, you can able to run up to thousands of records if you use AWS console to run your SQL queries in AWS Keyspace dashboard. So if you want to run your queries programmatically, then you must need to use Apache 2.0 licensed Cassandra client driver. You must need to install this licensed Cassandra client driver if you want to run programmatic queries. So this is all about querying and everything related to Apache Cassandra. So I hope you understood this video related to Apache Cassandra. I hope this video is contentful. If you feel this video is contentful, then please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates. Thanks for watching. See you back in the next video with another interesting topic. Until then, bye bye, guys.